Hey, Mayor. Hey, girl. It has been 11 days since I picked this girl up from the horse auction. While that may not seem like a long time, it does mark a pretty significant milestone in her refeeding process. You wouldn't think that she's made very much progress in that short amount of time, but I'm going to take her blankets off and show you guys just how much she has improved in a little bit less than 2 weeks. One of the reasons I started this YouTube channel was to help other people that were wanting to take in horses like this girl. Oftentimes, people that buy these horses at auction or find them on Craigslist or get given them by family members have the best of intentions. Unfortunately, it is really common for people to feed horses like this in a way that puts them at an increased risk of getting refeeding syndrome. There are a lot of traditional ways in which people feed horses that are not appropriate for a horse that has been in a starved state. I do try and share a lot of helpful information on my channel, but I do want to remind you that there is nothing that can replace a good relationship with a qualified veterinarian when you're dealing with a horse like this. This girl has been doing so much better than I had initially thought when I picked her up at the sale. She has been able to eat everything I put in front of her and is always looking for extra snacks. Another thing that was really surprising given her condition was how perfect her turd piles are. She maybe had a few loose piles here and there when I started to up her feed around day 4, but for the most part they have been pretty normal. All of the beneficial bacteria in the horse's hindgut do suffer when they are in a starved state. So I'm really excited to see that this girl seems like she has enough that she can properly digest all of the hay that I'm giving her. It's really important when you are refeeding one of these horses to keep them as healthy as possible. I've been practicing some pretty strict biosecurity protocols in order to make sure she doesn't get anything from my horses.
Hey, little buddy.
It's a little bit tricky to do in the winter time, but this girl will recover so much faster if she's not having to fight off any infections. I've gotten a few comments on this girl's videos about how I should not be feeding her alfalfa. Hopefully by the end of this video you will understand a little bit more why this is the perfect forage when refeeding a starved horse. The new mare has been getting really hot during the day, so I have been taking off her blankets. She's actually been sweating under them. It's been getting up in the high 40s, so that's pretty hot for this time of year. Just to remind everybody that's watching, this mare is 26 years old and she had a colt pulled off of her side about a month before she went to the sale. For her age, she's been able to eat this regular hay surprisingly well, so that is a definite plus. Unfortunately, I do have a lot of experience refeeding older horses like her that I find at auction. It is extremely hard to see these horses at auction, and every once in a while I do pick them up and refeed them. While it can be very expensive and time consuming, I think that these old horses are worth a shot most of the time. This is a horse that was in his late 20s who was a little bit skinnier than the new mare. With a careful refeeding program, after a week he was looking a lot better. And after about a month in my care, he was looking so much better and was even trotting around when I turned him out.
Hey, old boy.
It is extremely rewarding to get a starved horse and bring them back into a more normal state. If you are thinking about investing in one of these golden oldies, it is really important to understand how the refeeding process works so you can provide them with the best care. When a horse is being starved or they're in an underfed state, they go into a catabolic state. To get energy, their body is breaking down larger molecules like proteins and fats. When they start being fed again, their body switches over to an anabolic state, which means that they are building new cells and tissues from the food that they're eating. If not done very carefully, this switchover can cause a cascade of metabolic events that is really hard to get a handle on. This is a good basic chart of what happens when you are going through the refeeding process. As the body continues to break down its own tissues, depletions of electrolytes and other essential nutrients continues to grow. Upon refeeding, there are huge spikes in insulin, and without those essential electrolytes, there are a lot of things in the body that can go awry. The refeeding process can also be more tricky given the animal's age, how long they have been in a starved state, their current body condition score, and any underlying conditions that may prevent them from having a normal metabolic process. The gold standard in refeeding horses is still UC Davis's protocol. For the first 3 days, you're only feeding 1 pound of alfalfa across 6 different feedings. As you continue through the refeeding process, you slowly start to increase the amount of feed to about 50% of the horse's normal intake over 3 feedings. After day 10, the horses should be allowed access to as much forage as they can eat. The addition of any other grains or treats that may cause a significant spike in insulin are supposed to be withheld for the first several months. By now, you're probably wondering why the heck I would want to feed my horses a very nutrient dense forage like alfalfa if it was such a risky process. UC Davis's study was done in 2012, and there's actually been a lot more studies done in humans and the refeeding process since then. In both humans and horses, there is a significant decrease in the amount of phosphate, potassium, magnesium, and thiamine. At extremely low levels, each one of these presents a number of problems for an animal that is trying to go through the refeeding process. I don't want to paint too dismal of a picture for you guys, but this whole refeeding process is very important. In all the studies done on refeeding syndrome in horses and humans, hypophosphatemia is the first thing that you're going to see. When this happens, you will start seeing respiratory distress as well as neurological signs and cardiac symptoms in these horses. With all of these key nutrients depleted, it's extremely important to save your horse's energy. One of the reasons that I do not turn out new horses with other ones is because just running around can potentially lead to muscle weakness and rhabdomyolysis if the essential nutrients are low enough. The most notable signs among horses are cardiac problems and also extreme weakness. In a starved state, horses that lay down may not be able to get up because of the chemical pathways that need to take place in order for their muscles to function properly. With so many normal bodily functions relying on all of these key nutrients that are depleted, you may be wondering what in the world you can do to prevent this refeeding syndrome from happening. Some of the biggest causes I see are people turning their horses right out on a grass bale or pasture. Feeding the horse anything that is high in carbohydrates can really spike the insulin, so sweet feed and oats are definitely off the table. Even though horses are very skinny, you should not be feeding them oil at this stage. And even though you may be totally in love with your new horse, you should really refrain from doing any kind of treats that could spike their insulin, including commercial weight builders that usually have a lot of fillers in them. A lot of people go wrong by inadvertently giving their starved horse the nutrients that they think they need to gain weight very quickly. Unfortunately, sometimes the best of intentions have the worst outcome for a horse like this. Now that I've given you guys a good scare, I will get to showing you how much better this mare looks after just 10 days.
Hey, Mama.
Just to refresh your memory, this is what the mare looked like the day I bought her. This is at the horse sale. She is obviously very underweight and she did not want to have anything to do with me at this point. When we finally got home, I was able to take a closer look to see exactly what her condition was. At this point, she was getting very small handfuls of food every couple of hours. The most obvious signs of her condition are the very tippy tops of her hip bones pointing up right here. There is just a layer of skin in between those. There is no muscle or fat on top of them. Her hook and pin bones are very visible even with her long winter coat, and her spine is very prominent. Cut to today, and she has definitely gotten rehydrated and just looks a little bit fuller all around. Her attitude has obviously improved a ton as well.
See those teeth?
I've noticed a few tiny spots of ringworm that she's sprouted up since she's been a little bit too warm under her blankets. She's definitely getting a little bit more filled out in her hindquarters, which is pretty obvious because her pin bones are now not visible. Her hook bones, which are these ones right here, are not pointy anymore. They're a little bit more rounded. Her ribs are definitely still visible, but they're not as prominent as they were. One really exciting thing is that her top line is even beginning to fill in. I could feel every single one of her vertebrae, and now there's just a little bit of extra cushion on the top of her ribs. When I purchased this mare, I did suspect that she was pregnant, but my vet has confirmed that she is not in foal.
Hey, Mama. Hey, girl.
There are a few signs that her body is struggling a little bit with the refeeding process, including some edema along her midline, and every once in a while her hind legs do get stocked up a little bit. I have noticed, however, that throughout the day as she moves around, it does go down quite a bit. It is something I am definitely keeping my eye on, but is not overly concerning at this point. One thing that is extremely important when dealing with a horse like this is to have a knowledgeable vet. I am extremely lucky that my personal vet does have the same passion for unwanted horses as I do. After seeing far too many of these horses, she decided to write a book a few years ago. This is the perfect book to have on hand if you're thinking about investing in one of these horses and are not really sure where to start. I will link her website in the description in case any of you guys are interested in purchasing her book. I started refeeding horses like this long before I met her, but it is such a relief to have a veterinarian that understands this kind of horse that I can spitball ideas back and forth with as I go through the refeeding process. Just to give you guys one more peek at what she looked like 10 days ago. This is her the day I got her. And then flash forward to today. Even though she still does not look great, she has improved greatly. This mare should weigh around 1,300 pounds, I'm guessing, so the normal amount of forage that she should be eating is about 26 pounds of hay a day. I'm still trying to spread out her meals as much as possible, so I come back a few hours later around lunchtime to give her her third meal of the day. There really isn't any medical benefit to giving your horses less meals a day. It's more of a convenience thing. And since I'm happy to be inconvenienced by all of my horses, I'll feed her in multiple meals a day, just a higher volume until I get the combination exactly right. For an older horse like her, refeeding can be a little bit more tricky just because the body doesn't function normally when she's healthy. A big concern that I have as I'm refeeding these horses a larger volume of food is the chance of impaction colic. Because I am able to, I will continue to give her more meals throughout the day and spread her total ration among those. I really lucked out with the weather this time of year. It's typically below freezing during the day, but for the next 2 weeks, it's going to be around 40 degrees. So this mare will be completely happy to have her blanket off during the day. Since I have been spending so much time with the new girl, some of my other horses
buddy.
have been feeling a little neglected.
Hey, stud man.
I'm probably going to do another week of serious quarantine and then I'll start working my regular horses a lot more. Since we are past the most tricky part of the refeeding process, I am going to start to integrate a basic vitamin and mineral supplement into this girl's diet. I am just going to leave it by her door until I feed the rest of the horses. It was kind of nice to see this old girl resting in the sun this afternoon.
Mayor. Old girl. Hey, girl. Hey, mama.
Minus the edema that she has on her midline, this girl is looking so much better.
Hey, mama.
Before I feed her this evening, I do have to get some more hay down, and that means checking in with my supervisor.
Tiny. Hello, girl.
A few of you guys have inquired about how exactly I get the hay out of the big gigantic haystack. Since I don't have a tractor, I basically just cut the bales open and then just plop it into the back of my truck. This is an activity that can be a little bit on the tricky side, and I did hurt myself one time last year doing this. This winter, I'm trying really hard not to make any visits to the emergency room. Thankfully, all of the ice is melted, and once I get the truck positioned properly, it's not very difficult to push this hay right into the back. This big pile of hay will probably last me 2 feedings for all of the horses I have. I'm a little bit bummed the hay this year seems to be a bit more dry than it usually is, which makes it really tricky not to get completely covered in tiny little alfalfa particles.
Nigel. Hey, Nigel. Whoa, Tiny. Come
Tiny's favorite place to hang out in the winter is on the giant haystack.
Careful, girl. Come on.
I would love it if she was safe on the ground, so before I feed the other horses, I am going to try and snatch her off the top of this hay pile. As usual, Tiny did not actually want to come down, she just wanted to meow at me. I've seen her scale this giant haystack multiple times. Typically she uses that little gate on the side of the hay to climb up and down.
Tiny.
Since Tiny didn't really seem like she was wanting to come down, I went ahead and fed all of the other horses their dinner hay. Using the truck to feed my giant bales of hay does make it a little bit easier. Hopefully the new gator will make it a lot less treacherous at feeding time. With this warmer weather, Whiplash, Little Gus, Stewie, and Pete have been feeling a bit more frisky. Even though the new horse has changed up my feeding schedule a little bit, these horses still do not think they're getting fed soon enough. Because I have been feeding them a little bit on the early side, they have also been getting more hay than they typically do, just so they have something to do overnight. Really, the protocol that I have for refeeding a starved horse is not that much different than what my normal horses get. After reading all of the research, the most important thing that you should be doing when you're refeeding a horse is reducing the calories by 50%. It almost seems like UC Davis's protocol is only feeding about a quarter of the normal calories the horses should be getting. After day 3, they bump it up to 50%, and then after day 10, it looks like they can be on 100% rations. This is something that is supported by lots of data on the human side as well. Although it may look like I've been spending all of my time with the new horse, I have been under the weather for the last couple of days, so these horses have kind of just been hanging out. I am definitely now on the upswing, so I can get back into a more normal routine. That involves brushing all of the horses every day. Today I did trim a bunch of their tails because they were getting quite long. And I was really surprised to see today, maybe it's because I haven't been at the barn as much as I usually am, but Pete was wandering very close, so I decided to spend some extra time with him. For any of you guys that are new to my channel, Pete is one that had a fairly traumatizing start to his training when he was younger. He is normally a very sensitive horse, but just that little bit of mishandling early on in his life has really made him a little bit more scared of humans than the typical horse. Pete and Goose are very much alike. If they don't have to spend time with humans, they would rather not. Over the last couple of years, Pete has had a ton of downtime just hanging out with the herd. He gets to be a horse and not have to interact with me unless he wants to. Just over the last 6 months or so, I've noticed a change in Pete where he's starting to finally mature a little bit more mentally. I'm hoping that if I ease him back into it, that maybe he will start to enjoy our time together and I can finally further his training a little bit more. Although Pete isn't as snuggly as some of the other horses compared to how outgoing he was when I first bought him, he is definitely improved a significant amount. All of the horses that I've gotten that had maybe a little bit too rough of training when they were very young do kind of stay stagnant in their mental state for a number of years. Stewie is about half his age and he is probably a lot more mentally equipped to start training. Pete and Goose, on the other hand, still act like they are 2-year-olds most days. Even though they've seen a lot of the world and they've been hauled around, they still are very sensitive to the world around them. The horses that I get in that need refeeding from a starved state are almost easier than horses like Pete. Mental maturity is a lot harder to see than the physical improvements of a starved horse. I don't know that I could pick a favorite between the two. I really enjoy working with both the starved horses and then the ones that need a lot of extra help with their
Hungry,
training.
Mama?
With all of the rest of the horses set for the
Tiny!
evening, I can finally get to working this girl for the night.
You're on your own, girl. Sorry.
Tiny has been trying to navigate her giant haystack for the last couple of minutes, but I'm going to let her figure it out on her own. In addition to her hay for the evening, I'm also going to give this girl the beginning of what will be her hard feed. Compared to grass, hay, alfalfa has a lot higher percentage of protein and a lot of the essential nutrients that these starved horses need. It is also much lower in sugars, so it has a smaller chance of triggering a serious metabolic event. Once we're past the hardest part of the refeeding process, I will start feeding them a vitamin balancer. The total volume of feed that she's getting at each feeding is less than 1/4 pound. To fill any of the gaps in her nutrition from the alfalfa, I am feeding her a ration balancer. Just one tiny handful and another tiny handful of senior feed just so it's more palatable. In addition to that, she is getting California Trace and a vitamin E supplement. It is very important to note that I'm not giving her a full ration at once. She's getting it divided up over multiple feedings until I finally get her up to an adequate amount. Ideally, I would love for her to just eat the California Trace by itself because there's no fillers or anything in that, but most horses are not going to do that.
Tiny! Hold on, Tiny!
Unfortunately, it looked like Tiny was having a pretty hard time navigating her haystack.
Come on!
I usually don't do this, but it looked like she was having a really hard time figuring out how to get down this evening, so I just scurried up this pallet and decided to scoop her up.
Come on, Tiny! Come on! Come on! Gotcha, girl. Oh, alright. Okay, come on. Go about your business. Are you kidding me, Tiny?
Probably the highest biosecurity hazard that I have with these new horses is Tiny. She just kind of goes wherever she wants, and there is the potential that her tiny little paws could spread diseases amongst the horses.
Nigel.
It's always a balancing act, but I try to do the best that I can. My evening routine for this girl is very similar to what I do in the morning with her. I go through and give her a really good brush to get all of her blood pumping. I don't want to get too excited, but if the weather stays nice and this girl finishes quarantine, I might be able to haul her to a barn with hot water so I can give her a nice warm bath. Right now she is relatively clean, and I am going to keep an eye on the few little spots of fungus she has started to grow. In order to prevent more from growing, I do think I'm going to get another cooler for her that I can switch out so she stays as clean as possible. As the sun sets on the hardest part of her refeeding journey, I'm pretty thankful that this girl is still doing really well. I finally was able to sneak a closer peek at her teeth, and it looks like her incisors are broken off. In the early stages of the refeeding process, I don't do anything extra that could tax her already at-risk body, so she's not getting vaccinated. I won't deworm her. She won't get her teeth done. These are things in the grand scheme of things that are typically small potatoes compared to a significant metabolic event that could lead to a downward spiral. Of course, that is a fairly involved conversation you need to have with your vet. Treating a horse like this can be a bit of a balancing act. I do my very best to keep an eye on what is going in and what is coming out and update my vet as needed so we can change the plan as things evolve. I'm really thankful that this girl is not currently in foal. It just would be so much harder on her old body if that were the case. Since the hardest part of her journey is now over, I can relax a little bit. She still does not have a name. I'm kind of waiting for her to come out of her shell a little bit more before I decide on anything. You guys have had some really good ideas for names for this girl, but I'm not going to decide just quite yet. I am really excited to share the rest of this girl's journey with all of you guys, so if you aren't already subscribed, make sure to do that so you don't miss any episodes on her. A lot of you guys have been asking how you can help this girl out, and really the best thing you can do is just watch my videos, share them with a friend, and like them if you do enjoy them. Thank you guys so much for watching, and stay tuned for the next video.